He's an author of several books on spiritual recovery. You can find his books in the mall. The Art of Spiritual Warfare, his latest book. Very much encourage you to read that. Grant has done initiation work with young men for many years. He's run camps. He's done things that have really helped young men grow. He's a leader of men, not just young men. And he has spiritual warfare effectiveness training weekend. Others help him do this. It's a fabulous weekend. Sweat. I don't know if you've gone to that workshop. It's a fabulous weekend. It's really worthwhile. If you want to know anything about sweat, contact Grant or anyone at the sweat table back there. It's really a good program. Oh. Grant Schnarr has also helped us out a lot with these men's groups. I know, but I got to say this. Early on, when we were working with our men's groups and struggling to get them started and growing, Grant came in and said, yeah, you know, I'll lead one of those. And it's just been great ever since, the way he's been a leader in this whole thing in Bryn Athyn with these men's groups. So I give you Grant Schnarr.
Thank you. Well, I guess I have to take Tom out to dinner because I said if he mentioned sweat more than twice, I'd take him out to dinner. Wow, when I think about where we've come in 6 years, it's amazing. I remember the first year this big snowstorm, 90 guys trudge up here, and, you know, look at us today and look what's happening, and what an honor it is to have Robert Bly with us. It's phenomenal. Yeah. You know, it's funny. You know, it's one of those things. You know, be on the team here putting this stuff together. You know, it's like we got Robert Bly's coming. It's like, yeah. Oh. What are we going to do next year? You know, Robert Bly. Okay, good idea. All right. Talking to my kids about that. I said, I don't think God's available. I'm sorry, Robert. I didn't mean to do that for you. Anyway, and what a privilege it is to be able to come back up here and speak to you guys today. Talk about the hero's journey. You know, how many of you guys, when you're sitting there somewhere and you hear somebody talking about a hero, you perk up a little bit. Oh, they're talking about me, right? Hey, that's me. Yeah, I'm the hero. Let's talk about that. That sounds good. I don't think so. If you think about the heroes in today in society, think back like, you know, those military heroes like MacArthur, Patton, guys like that. Do you really relate to those guys? No. Probably with this many guys, there's some guys that really do, but it's hard. How about like Gandhi? You know, I'm on the path of Gandhi here, or Mother Teresa, or people like that. How about Arnold Schwarzenegger? You know, yeah, he's a fictional hero, guys. But in order to be Arnold, you need about 17 machine guns, 25 grenades, and all the rest. It's hard to identify, really, with what a hero is and how can I relate to being a hero. Sometimes we see heroes on TV, real-life heroes. I remember watching that. Remember when that guys from D.C., that plane went down in the Potomac, and there was that woman that was struggling to get to shore, and she was going under, and that bystander, I think his name was Lenny Skutnik, jumped in to save her. I remember actually sitting there going, I wish I could do that. I wish I could be him. So I spent about 2 years out by the Potomac waiting for another plane to come down. You know, it just didn't happen. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's hard to be the hero. Well, what I'm putting forth today is that if we look at it on a deeper level, on a spiritual level, not only can we be a hero, but we're all called upon to be heroes. And let's look at a definition of what a hero is. Right out of the dictionary. In mythology, a legend, a man often of divine ancestry, who is endowed with great courage and strength, celebrated for his bold exploits and favored by the gods. Then they have a secondary definition. A person noted for feats of courage, of nobility, or nobility of purpose, especially one who has risked or sacrificed his or her life. Now, some of the things that I pick up in there are, number one, there's some kind of connection to the gods, to the divine, to a higher reality. That there is a nobility of purpose. We're out there trying to do something, some kind of mission, and some kind of risk or sacrifice in order to achieve that mission. And if we look at that in terms of our own lives, maybe there is some possibilities here for us in our own personal missions and our own callings. You could be a hero on this invisible road of the Spirit. We've often heard about maybe what some people have called the horizontal plane of existence. You know, that's the flat plane of, you're born and then you go through life and then you die. On that horizontal plane is where we eat, sleep, drink beer. Maybe I should stop right there. Where we have, we form our relationships, where we form our community, what we end up doing in our life, our occupation. And it's all this life, this conscious life that we have, is the battlefield where it all takes place. And yet there are higher realities working into this horizontal plane. You might also have heard that at the same time there is a vertical plane. Anywhere we go along that line in our lives, at any time, we can stop, we can look up, and we can see where are we in relationship to the divine. You know, maybe at 14 years old, you know, what's this life about? We don't know a whole lot right there, but we're working on it. Who am I? What am I going to be? On a higher level, we start to believe in some things. Later on in life, we may be looking back and saying, God, what have I done? Who am I? How can I do better now? And there is that vertical line. Well, I think the hero's journey that every person can take, every man is called upon to take, can be found right at the intersection of those two lines, of the consciousness of our horizontal plane, our life as we know it consciously, and our connection to the gods, so to speak, to the Spirit at the same time. In Christianity, it's at the center of the cross. You can make a lot out of that. In Native American religion, it's where the good road and the hard road meet, come together. And it's on this plane, when we look inside and we reach in and we look for that fire that's burning inside, to bring that out, to do something for the world, to try to make a difference, that we enter into this drama of our lives, a drama, spiritual drama that's being played out that is incredibly important. On this higher plane of existence, there are things like divine missions and callings. On this plane, this spiritual plane for each human being and what he will make out of his life, we enter into the archetypal world where there really are dragons. There really are monsters. There really are knights in shining armor. There are damsels in distress. Probably get in trouble for that one. And there are sirens beckoning to their call. And I don't mean the ones on the back of fire engines either. That's the road we can walk, the spiritual plane, the spiritual mission. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to be? What am I? What have I been given that I can share with the world? You know, recently I was really, I've seen it so many times, but I'm just profoundly affected by the movie The Thin Red Line. How many people have seen that? It's about the taking of the hill at Guadalcanal. And along with that movie is its sister movie, Saving Private Ryan. Why do we flock to that? There's many reasons, I think, flock to these movies. One reason is we want to honor the men. And you know what? The men, they were 17 to 19-year-old boys who saved the world. Who saved the world. We want to honor them. We want to see what they went through. But, you know, think about it. Haven't we already seen, we've seen what they went through? How many people have seen the documentaries of all the battles and seen old footage of these things? Why do we really flock to those things? I think because what we hunger for, what we thirst for, is what was the inner battle like for those boys? because they were so quiet about it, so silent about that inner battle. And one of the things that the Thin Red Line does so well, and it's beautiful, I'm sure the writer took a poem and then divided up the lines into into some of the different players in that movie, their different dialogue. Because if you take it all together and you put it together, it is a poem. And in this story, The Thin Red Line, you hear the soldiers thinking and speaking. And what's being told there, what's being shown to us, is the deeper questions that they were going through. And these same questions we have to ask ourselves today. This is from that movie, just taking some of these things together. This great evil, where does it come from? How did it steal into the world? What seed, what root did it grow from? Who's doing this? Who's killing us? Robbing us of light and life, mocking us at the sight of what we might have known. Does our ruin benefit the earth, help the grass to grow and the sun to shine? Is this darkness in you too? Have you passed through this night? How did we lose the good that was given us? Let it slip away, scattered, careless. What's keeping us from reaching out and touching the glory? You know, for me in my life, my father, who went and fought in the Second World War, as so many did, he was awfully silent about that whole scene. You know what I mean by awfully silent? I mean, it was deafening. How many guys can relate to that? Looking back at that, yeah. And one of the things that we've lost as a culture, for a series of reasons I'm not going to go into, but we have lost the ability to storytell, but to storytell on this deeper level, the deeper battles, the deeper journeys. And if we don't hear, and why haven't we heard about these things? I've thought about that. You know, really, maybe it was just too horrible to bring out and to hold into hands and to tell about. Better to bury it as the good soldier than to collapse from the pain. But also on this deeper level, perhaps what was going on inside as they tried to reach for that glory and wondered about these demons that had possessed the world. Maybe some of what they learned was too precious to share. I'm reminded of Shakespeare's words, probably, of Grandpa, what was it like? There are more things in this life than are dreamt of in your philosophy, dear Horatio. Maybe we just couldn't understand, and so they were silent. But I know for me what effect that had on me. If there was no inner battle, if my father didn't go through an inner battle, then maybe there is no hero's journey. And if there's no hero's journey, then maybe there's no purpose. And if there's no purpose, maybe there's no God. Now, what do we do about that? I think there's two things we can do. One is if you got a grandpa or a pop, go and pin them down and make them talk. Make them in a nice way. You know, sort of like, Grandpa, if you don't tell me about this, I'm going to have to kill you. You know, that kind of thing. Because they're passing over. These boys are passing over in legions today to new shores. Taking the beachhead once again, but this time in brotherhood and love. We got to get them now. We got to hear those stories. We got to pass those stories along, the real ones. And at the same time, it's our job to go back and to ask those questions, those same questions, to ask them out loud, to search for an answer, and if we find that answer, to share that answer with our children. Who's doing this? Where did this evil come from? Who's killing us? What spirit is willing to stand up and take a stand for love, to build and to rebuild? What the answer to that is? The answer is me. It's we. We are the ones that are called to that task. And the battleground that we fight for that is our own lives, our own struggles. Now, how do we take this journey? Got to move a little faster here. 5 ways that I could think of. 5 suggestions. Wake up. Wake up. Follow the call. Align yourself with the divine cause. That sounds real dangerous, doesn't it? I mean love and integrity. Confront your own demons. Master yourself. And finally, allow yourself to be an emissary of love. I'm going to take these and talk a little bit about each of them. Wake up. That's hard to do at 4 o'clock, 4:30 or whatever. Scott Peck talks about this in People of the Lie. He talks about people who are asleep. In fact, this book, how many people here have read People of the Lie? I think it's one of his best books. It's talking about human evil, not something way out there, human evil. And he talks about, along with that human evil, there comes such a darkness and a sleep that he calls militant ignorance. Militant ignorance. I was doing an interview in Los Angeles talking about this, and the announcer said, "Oh, you mean people's right to be stupid?" That's right, yeah, with extreme prejudice. Militant ignorance. Scott goes on to tell a story about 2 brothers. The older brother's having a hard time with life. And part of it has to do with the parents who are asleep, too busy with PTAs and cocktail parties and fitness centers, so on and so forth. They're out of it, and he's dying. What do? Christmas time comes around. They give the older brother a gun for Christmas. The older brother shot himself, killed himself. Well, these same parents, when the younger... Well, first of all, let me talk about this. What was it like for the younger brother when that happened? Anybody lose an older brother? Yeah. You remember the story, Ordinary People, that movie? You remember when the boating accident, the older brother didn't make it and the younger one did? And the whole movie's about how that little brother has to deal with that. Why wasn't it me? The shame, the guilt, the burden. Well, these parents gave that younger brother that same gun for his birthday. What are they saying? Do it now and do it quickly. Kill yourself. And they didn't have a clue. Wake up. We've got to wake up to what's going on. Wake up and see our effect on other people. Wake up and sense and know that that man over there is another me on this road. I've got to tell one more story about this, and I'm going to tell the short version of this. I tell a longer version. I've had the privilege of getting to know a teenage girl, hangs around the house a whole lot, who was abused by her father sexually for 4 years. In fact, it started at 8 years old, pre-pubescent. What did he rob her? Well, he abused her and her sister, and when they wouldn't do exactly what he said, he'd put them out of the house and they couldn't eat. And together today now they get together and they talk about how good the bunny food tasted. So well, what's that about? Well, we would sneak up to the bunny cage at night and we would eat the food, and it tasted so good. Well, these girls finally they had the courage and they pulled the plug on the operation, and a SWAT team came in, took father away, took mother away. Next thing you know, the kids were taken away, taken out of their house, and at the same time never saw their pets again, never saw the house again, never saw their friends again. All moved off somewhere else. They were supposed to be in an institution for about 3 days until they were taken off to a foster home. They were there for 3 months. Finally, months later, they ended up at their grandparents' house on the mother's side, and mom was returned. And I want you to picture this little girl sitting on the floor playing with a puppy dog, grandpa's puppy dog. And the puppy dog jumped up and bit her in the lip. Now, what would you do when that happens? It's automatic. You can't help it. Push the puppy dog away, and the puppy dog yelped and rolled on the floor. Grandpa gets up and goes up to the little girl, grabs her by the collar and says, "That dog has more of a right to be here than you do." Wake up, Grandpa. Don't you think she already knows that? Even the bunny has a better deal than she does. Yeah, it's tough to be old. It's tough to have all these kids come in. But you're called upon to be the hero here. You're called upon to be the hero. Wake up. Follow the call. I'll talk about that call. Oftentimes, I know for me, for a lot of years, I thought that the call would be some kind of ancient lady of the lake. While I was sitting by the Potomac waiting for the plane to crash, I was waiting for the lady to come out too and hand me the silver chalice and tell me what to do with my life. Mr. Bly talks about it so much. Most of the time, when the real answers come, when we're in the ashes, when we're in the descent, it's through our wounds. I was talking to a woman the other day who was saying, I went and I spent all this money on this psychic or whatever, and the psychic told me, oh, your mission is joy. And I don't have any joy in my life. I got ripped off. So, well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to set things up and get people together and get them working together and open up their hearts and spirits and get honest with each other. And what happens? Well, they get real joyful. Well, there you go. Joy. Yeah, but the reason I'm doing that is because I never felt that in my heart. I was always so alone. I couldn't connect with people. Yeah, it comes through the hole in the soul. When we look at, we wait for that call. One of the things we might look at, what do I need? What do I need? What am I hurting about? Because often that's the thing where we have the empathy, where we can truly give something to someone else that we can't seem to get for ourselves, and then we end up getting it. I know that's true for me. I grew up feeling like I did not have a spiritual mentor. Hey, anybody feel that way? Yeah. The religious leaders or whatever were just so busy talking about formulas and this and that, how to put things together and what the rules were. They didn't have a clue what was going on in my life. And my father, who was an incredible earthly mentor on that flat plane, was great. He taught me all kinds of stuff. But after a while, I started to think to myself, Dad, it's great learning how to drive a truck and run a backhoe and how to get a girl and how to be a good businessman. And I'd never asked him this, but what about the terror in my heart? What about these demons? What's my purpose here? What am I doing here? Nothing. And one of the things I've tried to do in my life, and I just realized this, was to be a mentor, to be a spiritual mentor for people, to give them some hope and a purpose, to help guys come along. And what a privilege it's been to be able to be a mentor to some older men. My life, it's turned to gold. I want to tell you a story about it. I just heard this from a good friend of mine. By the way, all my stories are told with permission. In fact, Tom Rose has a joke that if it's a rule of life, eventually, if you're a friend of Grant's, you're going to end up as a prop in one of his stories. But I just heard this, and it's a precious story, and it really illustrates it. I want you to picture a little boy all alone, sledding down this hill, the synagogue in Philadelphia. And if you look from a distance, you can see it looks like he's having a good time. He's going up the hill and he's talking to himself and he's going down the hill and then he goes back up again. But if you move in a little closer, you can move into his heart, you can see that something else is happening there. This little boy is alone. He came from another country not too long ago and he doesn't speak very good English. And all the kids decided, well, he's too weird, to get to know. And they're making fun of his accent, how he can't quite speak right. And then a couple other boys, they see this, they see the weakness, and so they've taken it upon themselves that they're going to beat this kid up every day. So he lives in fear of these kids finding him. And it's getting dark, and he knows he needs to go home, and he's got a feeling in the pit of his stomach because he knows he has to go back to Dad. Many of us, who beats him? Who says, "You stupid! You stupid! You never do anything right!" But the little boy decides he's going to go down that hill one more time on that sled, and he's going to win the race. So he's sledding down this hill, and he fails to notice that there's a pipe sticking up out of the ground. And those sleds with the runners, most of your body's off the back, and you're just holding on, and he's going down the hill, and this pipe hits him right in the stomach, and it cuts him open. And he can't breathe. Help me. Help me. And no one's there. And And the whole world, and the darkness caves in on him. I'm alone. I'm alone. And as he passes out, he has a near-death experience. A divine being comes to him. This is so touching. The divine being comes to him. He says, in the form of the only man that he trusted. Yeah, Walt Disney. And Walt Disney comes up to him and says, and catch the words because you might have heard him. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then in so many words, Walt Disney says to this boy, you know this loneliness you feel? You're going to use this. You're going to help a lot of little boys not feel that loneliness anymore. That was my good friend Zen Haranchuk, the founder, one of the founders of the Men's Gathering, co-founder of men's groups in Bryn, Athyn, co-founder of Spiritual Warfare Effectiveness Training. I guess Walt was right, Zen. Thank you. Thanks for letting me share that story. Because it's through our wound, it's through our pain. So don't keep looking out there. You know, we talk about the ashes, right? Well, ashes are from fire, right? Blow the ashes off. Look for the embers that are still burning. Give them some support. Get the flames going. That's where you'll find it. And that's where you can make a difference. Now I'm going to whip through a couple of these just to stay on time here. Align yourself with the divine cause. We're right, they're wrong. Let's get an army together and go prove it to them, right? No. If there's anything we should agree on, it is that cause is the cause of love. Love one another. It's in every religion. Love one another. Master yourself. Put something good into the world. Confront your demons and master yourself. I just have one phrase for this, and I say this to me. If you want to make the world a better place, if you want to become an emissary of light, stop working for the dark side. Stop working for the dark side. You know, you can do good, and all these things, and we see all these guys going out and doing all this stuff, but their life is a mess. If you want to change the world, you got to begin right here with yourself. And become an emissary of love. Do we really believe, we live by it a lot, but do we really believe that we're going to be remembered for all our deeds of self-glorification? Deeds are often remembered, but what is it that lives? What is it that lives? It's the heart that lives. It's the heart that lives within the deeds. It's the heart that not only people remember, but you can rub that heart and that love off on somebody else. And they can take it forward to somebody else. And then to somebody else. New Warrior talks about it. Drop a pebble in the water and see those ripples go forth. The effect that you can have, one man can have on the whole world. Swedenborg takes it a step further and says, every moment of our lives, every good thing we put into the world starts a chain reaction of a series of consequences that go out into the universe to eternity. That's a long time. We can have an incredible effect on people if we can become that emissary of love. Can you be remembered? Or can you be the guy that the little boys aren't afraid to play around, walk up to? Can you be the guy that maybe the little boy is not afraid to tell a story to? Can you be the man that the women trust and can trust? Can you be the friend that is willing to tell the truth with mercy? Can you be the one that's willing to stand up for love and integrity? I want to talk about a short parable about this. And that is, it's from an ancient Mesopotamian text. Okay, it's from the Bible. Anyway, you say that, oh no, he's going to get religious. Now I'm talking like Robert Bly. Gee whiz. No, I'm sorry, Robert, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. But it's a great story because it's the call of Moses. And I picked Moses because Moses is a regular kind of guy. He really is. He didn't want the job. He didn't want the mission. He kind of got drafted into it. and he was pretty reluctant at the same time. Well, also Swedenborg says that, Robert Bly talks about this, Joseph Campbell, that a lot of our Western culture, one of the problems is we've lost our mythology. Well, Swedenborg 200 years ago said that these Hebrew texts are our Western culture's mythology, right? And that we need to look at them as such, that these stories are a mirror in which we can behold ourselves and learn about ourselves. And in fact, he talks about this story of Moses bringing the children of Israel out of Egypt as the divine call to lead us out of our own materialistic, egotistical way of life to something better. Egypt represents the land, represents science, materialism, just that flat plane. It's a wonderful, marvelous place. In fact, it's the land of technology. It's all the grand wonders that we create in our lives. But remember, they're slaves in Egypt. Okay, even Jesus went to Egypt to learn of science, but these people are slaves to the flat materialistic world, slaves to the cell phone. You get that today? Slaves to the television set, slaves to making enough money. And we've all been there. You work, and you're still feeling completely empty and bankrupt, and you never seem to get what you need. Well, who's ruling Egypt? Pharaoh. So he is, in many ways, he's the dark king. Swedenborg says that Pharaoh is a symbol, what he calls, in 18th century terms, the pride of self-intelligence. The pride of self. That's what's locking us into materialism. I know what I'm doing. It's going to happen for me. If the word existed in his day, I think he would call it the unrestrained ego. There's a place for it. But when the ego is just reigning supreme in this materialistic world, we are slaves. We're empty. Now, how many of us? I'm going to be a millionaire before I'm 30. I want to have my, the beautiful woman and the house and the car and the big screen TV and the tractor mower and fame and fortune and salary to pay for everything. Isn't that why we're all in men's groups? We get to that point where one day we wake up. We wake up and we realize we've missed the boat. We've lost the mission. We've woken up and realized we're slaves in an evil empire. We're slaves in an evil empire. Now Moses comes along to pull the children of Israel out of Egypt. And Swedenborg talks about Moses as being that first divine light or understanding that's going to lead us. He represents the law. The first idea that maybe there's something higher here, more noble, that can lead us out of this slavery. And it's interesting because the word Moses, the Hebrew word, means extraction. Extraction. To pull out with great resistance. You got to. And it's interesting because he was extracted out of the marshes, right? And then he turns around and he helps to extract the Hebrews out of that slavery. And on a spiritual level, it's about letting that divine light that's within us, Moses is a part of us, extract and pull us out of that materialism to something higher. Now, a lot of things happen. There's a lot of stuff there, like Moses gets really upset and kills an Egyptian, and all kinds of terrible things happen, and he has to run out of town, to get away. And that's the first dawning of truth is very judgmental in our lives. We tend to judge other people. We tend to judge ourselves harshly when we first get that reality. And it's too painful to go, missions? I'm going to do something for the world. Forget that. I'm such a goofball. Get out of town. Go into the mountains. Tend some sheep. Marry the preacher's daughter. That's what he did. He's out there. Well, while he's out there comes the call. And I do want to talk about that call. He sees this bush burning, but it's not consuming. Rumi talks about it. All kinds of, it's that fire, the fire that does not consume. What is it? It's love. It's the first sense that there's something really called love. And I'm not talking about just human love, but this it's coming out of the universe. And it's calling to me. Moses, Moses, I have seen the oppression, the pain, the cry. I have heard the cries of my people. I've heard the cries. That's a calling inside of us. I've heard your cries. I know how messed up you are. I'm going to bring you out to a new place. I've heard the cries of the little girls, their pain. You can reach out. And the little boys who are all alone on the hill. You can make a difference. Do you hear that call? I think, I was thinking about this morning, and then I got a phone call. Honey, phone's for you. Who is it? It's God. God? Is he calling long distance or local? Long distance, and he's calling collect. Anyway, God who? Does he have a last name? It's interesting because in this story, Moses, this fits right in because Moses, he hears this. You are going to go and you're going to save the people and everything. And what's Moses say? Basically, you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. First thing he says is, okay, I'm going to go back there and face Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and tell these people they got to follow me out. Whom shall I say is calling? And that's the great speech. We all know it. Tell them I am. I am the great I am. Tell them I am has sent you. Now, think about that. Now, there's been books written on what all that means, but let's take it real simple. Okay, we get this calling, this sense that there's some higher mission here. Maybe I can do something with my life. Maybe I can make a difference. But who is this God character anyway? I don't really know. What is this thing called love? I don't really understand it. But I know it is. It is. It's real. That's the first dawning. There is something higher than myself here. Tell him, I am has sent you. So what did Moses say? Yes, sir. Okay. Nope. He's all of a sudden, I got to stutter. I can't speak. I can't speak. It's interesting because then, God says to him, well, that's okay. Your brother Aaron will speak for you. Now, how many of us, if they said, your brother's going to speak for you, would really get kind of nervous, Last time my brother spoke for me, we were put in jail on a DUI. Right? I can't speak. I don't have what it takes. How could I possibly do this? I don't have what it takes. I can't do it. If I change, I can't change. I can't reach up to this. But your brothers, can I say? Your brothers, they'll help you. They'll be there for you. So then is he ready to go ahead? No. Then he's like, well, show me a sign. Give me a sign. Then I'll know. I'll take the sign back with me. And it's interesting what the signs are. Because the signs are all really negative. It's like, you want a sign things are really messed up? Okay, we'll turn water into blood. We'll take that rod of yours that you carry around and we'll turn it into a snake. And then he says, now take your hand. Take your hand. Put it in your heart. Pull it out. And it's white as snow with leprosy. You want a sign that you need to change your life? Your life is all messed up. Isn't that a sign enough? Isn't that a sign enough? The water to blood has a significance. So does everything good in your life that gives you support is turned into a snake. But that hand, every man can relate to that. You put your hand in your heart, you're numb. You're numb. We look at that and we think Moses was so stoic, right? Sort of like, oh yes, he has turned my hand into leprosy. I now understand. You think, come on. He's like, this was the feared disease for centuries. Turn it back, turn it back, turn it back. I know, turn it back. You're going to go numb if you just stay here where you're at. You're going to go numb. Your heart's numb. Everything from the heart to the hand, the outermost, is numb in your life. I think we can all relate to that back in early men's groups, right? Joe, how are you? I'm fine. Thank you, Joe. How are you? I'm good and I'm getting better every day. Pete, you're in denial. Okay. I'm fine. Thanks, Pete. You're working on it. We're there to back you up, buddy. We get numb. Real quick story, and I can say this, and it's weird I can say it so numb-like. You know, I'm watching one of these TV shows, one of these, learning channels, and it's about, another documentary on a serial killer, serial killers. And here they got one, it's all sensationalism. They're showing the videotape. This serial killer videotaped his threats and everything to the women, and then he videotapes everything that happened, the torture and the killing. And they show just a little bit of the videotape of the woman when he was threatening her. And I looked over at that woman, and for a moment I thought I recognized her. And I was like, oh, it's one of my best friends. And like lightning went through me. Oh my gosh. And I'm looking into her eyes and to see that fear and to know that she was going to die. Then I looked a little bit closer and I go, oh no, I don't know her. Phew, I don't know her. Let me use Bob Beck's line. What's up with that? What's up with that? I'll tell you what's up. It's called leprosy. It's leprosy. You know what? That is my best friend on that TV set. That's my daughter. That's my wife. That's my mother. We've got to feel that because it's true. It's true. If you want to be the hero. Just to go to the end of Moses' life, we're going to skip to that part. Moses goes back and he faces Pharaoh and he shows him all these miracles, and Pharaoh is able to produce the same things. He can say, give me, bring in the magicians, right? He can turn rods into snakes. He can turn the water into blood. He's like, I know about this, but I'm in control. But imagine that, the divine light facing your ego saying, don't you realize your life is all messed up? Yeah, I know it's all messed up, but I'm in control. And anyway, the life's getting good and better every day. Keep going with it. It's going to work tomorrow. And what happens is a series of plagues have to take place, right? First, they're just bothersome things, flies and frogs and stuff like that. Then they get worse and worse, cattle being destroyed, disease, until Pharaoh and everyone else has to lose their child, their firstborn. Then he's crushed. Then he's willing to let go. Remember, ego, pride of self-intelligence. I guess the only question I have to ask you is, what do you need to lose to let go and let that divine light take you on a journey? Moses goes on this journey and he is, you go back and read this story. The people bicker and complain and everything. And, you brought us out here to kill us and all that. And they can't find any food. Things go wrong. The game plan falls apart. Most of the people end up dying in the wilderness. It's their children who go in. And even worse, and I believe that there is a deeper level to this. So I'm not trying to be profane or anything, but he gets to a point where the people want to stone him. So he goes up on a mountain to talk to God about this. What do I do? God, you gave me the orders. And God goes, I've had it with these people. I want to wipe them out. And suddenly, who's the only adult in that picture? Moses. Not only did he have this mission given to him, but then he was abandoned, at least right here. I think that's there. That's how we could feel sometimes. God, why did you leave me here? I don't know what's going on now. And what he really needed back then was a clearing stick, but they didn't have one, so. But he's all alone. And the worst thing is, he messed up on a couple of directions. So God said to him, okay, you're not going to go into the land. I'm not. No, you're going to. Come on up here. Look over there. See the land? They're going to take that land. But you're going to die right here today. I am? He died there on the mountain. All by himself. I think it's beautiful words. Buried by the hand of God. God buried him. That's a myth for us today. Was Moses a failure? According to modern terms, he sure was, wasn't he? He didn't make any money. He never really held down any kind of job. Probably wasn't too good a father, right? He took these people out on this crazy mission. It failed. He didn't get there. But why do we remember him? It's the hero's journey because he took upon himself the sacrifice of self for a higher vision from love and a higher mission. And he's remembered in Hebrew folklore as the man who spoke to God face to face and lived. Wouldn't you like to be known to that? Hey, there's Joe. Yeah, he's the man who spoke to God face to face and lived. But again, a lot of things went wrong, but he did, because it's our heart. It's the heart that's remembered. And I want to put this right, Roosevelt said it, and I want to put it toward Moses, and I want to put it toward every man that's willing to stand up. It is not the critic that counts, nor the man who points out how the strong man stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by the dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at his best knows the triumph of his achievements, and who at his worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Can you say, I am that man? You can. The whole world, your peers, your religious leaders, government officials, corporate world will say, shame on you. But you are that man. Because if you don't do it, nobody will. Now, my last part of this talk is about an illustration of this in my own life. And I tell these stories, I hope unselfishly, just to give you a piece of humanity that you can relate to in your own life. I remember one year, I got up and I cried about something or whatever, and I got a call from a therapist. It sounds like you need some help. I'd love to come talk to you. It's like, missed the whole point, I think he did. Anyway, guys, you can tell me later. But we're talking about that emptiness and that sense of carrying the stories down to the children. And I just had the wonderful privilege lately to have an experience that just changed my life, and I think it ties everything together. 2 years ago, my father came down with lung cancer. And at that time, as I was processing that, didn't know if he was going to make it or not through the operation, I pretty well buried my father, I realized. I had come to that sense that, he did a lot of good things for me on a physical level, natural level. He cared for me. But when it came to that spiritual journey, I really believed, and you can ask my men's group, I believed he didn't take one. He must not have taken one. Or if he did, I will never know. I will never know it. I gave up on it. You might remember one year he came in here on the evening. The following year, my men's group said, call him up again, beg him to come. I was like, no, I've given up on him. And I called him, and he's like, no, I'm not coming to that. And I respected it. I said, I don't like those things. He's a tough old guy. 70, back then he was 75. So I'd basically given up on my father, and a lot of guys from New Warrior know there's a lot of anger over my father, as we all have. A lot of ways, I heard too much about a lot of things I didn't want to hear about. And there was a lot of shame. And he went through many years of a lot of alcoholic escapades that brought me a lot of shame and a lot of fear and a lot of anger. So I'd given up on him. Well, he went through that operation and he lived and things were fine. Well, 3 months ago, he came down with lung cancer in the other lung. And I just had that feeling, that maybe this isn't the end, but it's the beginning of the end. At the same time, we just buried, I don't know where Paul is, we had just buried Paul's father, died during the same operation. And my dad's twin brother also died during that operation about 15 years ago. So this time it was like, this is going to be it. Maybe it's not right now, but real soon. And boy, all of a sudden you become a little boy real quick. You know what I mean? So my men's group sitting there, they're asking me, well, what do you need? What do you need? And I'm like, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I mean, I've given up. I'm not going to get the story. He took no journey. I don't know the man spiritually. I'm going to bury him, and I'm just going to say, I never knew him. I appreciate what I did know. But the rest I've given up on. And they pushed me. No. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? I go, what do you need? What do you need? And he said, stop it. Okay, I'll tell you. Maybe what I need is I just want to bring him in here with you guys here. And I just want to hear his story, even if it's whatever the story is. Just I want to honor him for being who he is. And I know you guys would do that. Just to listen to his story. And I just want to share a little bit of my world with him. Say, Dad, I hope you can be proud. I know I didn't go into business with you. But, a lot of men's lives have been changed. I hope you can see that. Anyway, so they said, well, bring him to men's group. Talk about father work. So I said, okay, one of my guys is in the men's group is Locke Brown, and another one is Pete Barricky, and both those guys were on the fire company in Bryn, Athyn here, and my dad was on the fire company a long time, and he knew those guys, and Locke said, tell him I talked you into it. So I went over to this old guy's house. Here he's got, cancer, the whole bit, and it's just before Christmas, and he's up on the roof fixing lights. And I walked him. I said, Dad, I want you to come to my men's group. We want to hear your story. And he knows Zen Haranchuk. We said, Zen won't pull any of these processes on you. We promise. You should have seen Zen. He's like, oh man, Mr. Schnarr, how are you? How does it feel knowing you're going to die? Get up here. Do you love your son? I was scared to death Zen was going to do that because I wanted to honor my dad in his place. Different generation. Well, I go there, and he's up on the roof, and I'm like, Dad, I want to bring you to men's group and all that. And he looks at me, he smiles, he said, did Lockie Brown put you up to this? I said, yes, he did, Dad. I was like, it's great. Men's group is great. Give it to somebody else. And he looks up and he starts reciting a poem about the sailor. And how the sailor's always misunderstood. But go up to a sailor and shake his hand because you can trust a sailor. He said, I'm coming. I'll be there. So a couple of weeks later, Dad came into the men's group and we had Zen bound and gagged. He did squirm. I mean, and he had some notes even, and he held some notes, and he said, what I really want to talk about, I want to talk about my brother. He had a identical twin brother that he cared for all his life. And any identical twins? You're twins. I mean, the connections, But we said, start from the beginning. And it was only a few seconds before he had put that piece of paper down. And what we heard was so beautiful because you heard the gruffness of an old man talking, but it was the voice of a child. Create that safe place. And on one level, we heard about his journeys, about him and his brother growing up in Bryn, Athyn, and they had a hard life, and things weren't working out too well. They got in a lot of fights with people, and he said, and I think we might have even burned down one of the school buildings up here, DeCharms Hall. But I'm not sure. We were smoking in there, and a little later it went up in flames. I don't know. But old Chief White, I guess, or somebody, old Chief till he died, he was like, you did that, didn't you? And he went on, he talked about how when they grew up, they were shipped off to Canada, just the two of them, all by themselves, like 8 or 9 years old, to work in a farm. And what was that like for you? It was great, because we were away from Dad. And how he talked about going off to the war and how Uncle Donnie, his twin Don went off and he had it really bad. He went to the European campaign in the Navy, and I was in the Pacific, and I had it real easy. And now he came back, and now he built a life. And we went on and told the story. He built the first ambulance for the Bryn Athyn Fire Company. Here, he built it. But on another level, he told a story I had not heard before. With the gentleness and the gentle leading of my brothers in the men's group, in my silence, the back of the room, in the dark. He told a story of a little boy who loved his brother so much, and the rest of the members of his family, and how his father, and this is every man's story, his father was just a terrible man, a very tall, huge guy who moved here during the Prohibition to become a bootlegger. That's what he did for a living. And how he used to beat his mother, but she loved him till the end. And how he used to take them out, and he just put their arms out, and he had to hold their arms out. And he told this not with this pride or anything, but with this humility and this, as like a child. We had to hold our arms out, and he'd beat them. And if you cried, you got 2 more. And he said they would swell up like balloons. They would swell up like balloons. I knew that my dad boxed when he was a child. He taught me how to box, to defend myself. But he told more of the story, how him and his brother at 5 years old, they were twins. So they would be woken up in the middle of the night. Put on your boxing gloves. It's time to go out and box. And they had to go into these bars, and they set up this little arena. And these 5-year-olds had to box each other night after night from 5 years old up until 17 when they went into the Navy. And he's saying when he talked about his brother, he said, I tried to just land that punch enough so my father wouldn't know that I was holding back, but I didn't want to hurt him, just enough to not hurt my brother. And there was this one time where they did. I didn't know there was a boxing school or whatever up here. There was an exhibition, and him and his brother were boxing in front of the school. And his brother was like, he said he got kind of riled up, like, I'm going to beat you tonight, I'm going to beat you. And how my father said, I let him beat me. And you know what? He almost knocked me out. I let him beat me. Well, I don't want to miss a piece of this, so 2 other pieces that were just really something. While this was going on with this father, his little brother, or his twin brother, was always just a little bit slower in 6th grade. His brother failed. He passed. He said, I decided to stay behind. When they went into the Navy together and were being trained together in midshipman school and everything, they brought my father, Ron, into the room, and they said, you did well. We want to promote you. And he said, are you going to promote my brother? No. Well, then screw you, sir. You're not promoting me either. And then when they went off to the war, he talked about how much he was worried about and concerned about his brother. And he went into a million invasions and this and that, and he started talking about the invasion of Iwo Jima. And he was on one of those, what were they called, Doc? Those LSDs, bringing the troops and the big stuff into the shore. And we said, well, what was that like? Oh, it was rough. No, what was that like? What was that like? And suddenly the 17-year-old boy came out, and he said, I could see the Marines. They would just get up and run up that hill. And then they would fall. And they would fall. And how happy he was when he returned home and his brother was safe and sound again. And then what he told me was this. I got home, and my father, and maybe he was jealous of the boys or whatever, my father in a drunken rage said, get your boxing gloves. Tonight you're going to box me in front of all these people. And he said to us, I knew if I didn't fight with everything I had, he was going to kill me. So this boy, 17-year-old boy, boxed his father into a bloody pulp in front of the entire town. And, essentially, because, Locke asked him, well, what happened after that with Dad? And he said, well, he respected me after that. A few days later, Dad's walking up the stairs, goes up and by his sister's room, and there his father is on top of his sister in bed. And this boy took the demon king and dragged him all the way down the stairs and threw him out the door and said, if you ever do anything like that again, I will kill you. And the lizard king slithered off into the darkness. He told a lot more, and I don't have time to go into it. About losing his son, that's another whole piece. As a child, my older brother Bruce, I've talked about him before a whole bit. But at the very end, we had a chance to go around the room and honor him a little bit, and it was wonderful because, some of the guys that knew my dad said, you were such a gentleman to us. Such a gentleman. How did you do that? And I had a dad, you hardly laid a hand on me. You threatened a couple, I'm going to get out the belt kind of thing. And you were so gentle with my sisters. What was that about? He said, even when you're young, you know what's wrong. And I wasn't going to do that to my family. I wasn't going to do that to my family. And so what I realized, and I could just feel myself being filled with gratitude. Oh my gosh, I heard the story. I heard the story. What a gift. He did take the journey. He took the journey. And you know what? He has plenty of demons that I was angry about all my life, but those demons, he kicked their ass. And I was able to go to him and say, and it was hard. I'm on the other side of the room and say to him, I'd say, Dad, Dad, everything you told me, I just want to tell you one thing. And sorry, folks, you took that shit and you turned it to gold. And this tree, this branch on this family tree, it went another way. And it blossomed. And I couldn't see, but my spies on the other side of the room said he was in tears. Well, at the very end of the night, we had an opportunity to bring him in, and we said, can you come into the middle of the room? Your operation's in a couple of weeks, and we want to put our hands on you and bless you. Zen was thrilled. He's like, oh, okay, all right. And so he went and he sat in the middle of the room. He sat down, and I went around the back. I could not sit in the front and look into my father's face during this. I went around the back and laid my hands on this old body. And we all laid our hands on him. And we just started thanking him. Thank you for this. Thank you for that, and honoring him. And then there was silence. Then I heard a voice speak. It was the voice of a little boy in an old man's body with tears. Thank you for your hands. They're warm. They feel good on my body. And I think we all realized at the first time that this boy who had only known the hands of violence and cruelty was finally feeling the hands of masculine love. 2 weeks later, actually it was a week later, our men were going off in a men's group 3 days before the operation. And we were going on a men's weekend, and fathers were up for us, as they say. We were talking a lot about it. And Paul had been talking about how when his father passed on, that he went into his father's top dresser drawer to see what was left. How many guys can relate to that? What's in your father's top dresser drawer? I remember going through that when I was a kid. If you've got a chance, go and look at your father's top dresser drawer. Boys, let me have a chance to look in there first, okay? But we decided to bring something from that represented our fathers, something of our fathers. And I was sitting there, I was telling my 4 boys about this, telling them the story about Grandpa. And they go, what should I bring? What should I bring? And suddenly it dawned on me. I had bought my parents' house. And I remembered there was something I used to play with when I was a kid. I think it's still up there. And Stephen, my youngest, and I went running up into the attic, and we searched, and we looked, and there was a little bag in the corner. And I went, And I found them. I found them. These little boxing gloves. And I have these hanging on my wall today. He's hanging on my wall. And what a privilege it is to say, because they remind me of my father and the spiritual journey that he took, the hero's journey, so that I can look at these today and remind myself of what I have to do. And, I just want to share them with you. So, if you can get them back here, I want to share them with you. I'm almost done, guys. 3 days later, he went into his operation. And I really didn't know. I had written this all down beforehand because it was so precious. But 3 days before, and I didn't know how this was going to end. I didn't know if I was going to stand up here and say to you, and he died on that table. But the old guy pulled through. He's at home now recuperating. No? The old guy pulled through. He toughed it out one more time. And after the operation, we were in the recovery room with him and me at the foot of the bed, and Mom was there, and the sweetness between them at that age, after everything that they had been through, was another blessing. And he just sat there, and again, the boy was there, and he said, I did it. I beat it. I beat it. I can't believe it. You know how frightened I was when I went in there? I didn't think I was going to come out. It's a miracle. Then he turned to my mother and he said, you know that men's group? They saved me. They saved me. They laid their hands on me. And these little boys whom he protected were able to come back to him and return that love. Brothers, there is a higher reality here. There's a higher drama. Reach for it. There is glory out there. We hear in the men's gathering and men's groups, in Sweat and New Warrior, we can make an incredible difference. Let's go and get those little boys in the ring and unloose their gloves and teach them the hands of love. We can make a difference. One man, one woman, one little boy, one little girl, one teardrop at a time. I want to close with a poem that I wrote for my father. Reading a poem in front of Robert Bly is sort of like singing your own ditty in front of Paul McCartney, or... And I took this, I got the idea from looking at the movie The Thin Red Line, because there's another part in there where it's like, who were you that I was with when this took place? And so I took that and I applied it to my father. And I share this with you as a poem for every man, for fathers, for the pain of losing fathers, for the journey, the spiritual journey that we're all called upon to. Who were you when we walked those fields together? Who pulled me from the edge of the pit, never hinting of the boy imprisoned there, or the struggle those hands endured to set that boy free? Where did those scars come from on your arms? And what does that single tear mean that you so quickly wipe from your coarse and scarred cheek? Whose rough and rugged hands were these holding me in my time of fear, teaching my tiny hands to wage war against my adversaries, and encouraging me to use them only in defense of self or others? Who were you, who both dazzled and terrified me, who walked as a shadow behind me and a pillar of light before me, as the darkness, the demon, the saint, and the spirit guide, though I did not recognize the latter until these same hands, now shrunken, shake with age, and whom I now know fought valiantly in that darkness to protect the innocent in need and guard against the demon king, whom you defeated, thwarting the hands of violence and cruelty,
Tell me, who dared dream such a dream after that nightmare? And carrying the burden of 1,000 angry blows, gave passage for this son to dream in these meadows without fear, and to pass these happy hopes to sons and brothers strong. Who were you who walked those fields? The path was so short, the words so few, the wars so hidden, the deeds so countless in number, but the memories so fading. I looked back the other day, afraid that you had gone, and I saw you at a distance, taking another road in your silence, out of earshot, fading from sight. I watched your footprints seem to vanish from this place. But before I turn and walk down this road, I will call out into the emptiness of these fields, expecting no more a reply. As a boy in terror, as a man in grief, as a soldier giving honor, and as a witness by birth and for all time to remember, I will call out, "Who are you?" Oh, my soul, you know who. He was my father. He was my brother. And on this path of darkness and light, I now confess deep within my being, he was my hero. Thank you.